to order the March 23rd meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I'll recognize Councilmember Robinson for our ceremonial opening.
Great. Well, thank you so much. For those of you in the audience, you may have had a hard time finding a parking spot, and that is because we are hosting the Veterans Benefits Live event now through Saturday. And this is such a privilege for us to be able to host this. We were one of the first communities in the United States to host this event. And this is an opportunity for veterans and dependents to come to the town and meet with people that can assist them. For example, there's the veteran benefits and health administrators, the vet center, and the veteran service officers. And they are facilitating and expediting existing claims and appeals and filing new claims. This is a really big deal that we're making it easy for veterans to get the services that they need. And of course, we feel very privileged to be able to sponsor this. And it is not without a lot of work from a lot of people. Sometimes we see things like this happen and we just can't even imagine the amount of work that it takes to pull off something like this. So at this time, I'd like to thank the Cary volunteers who are there daily to assist, including those from the Cary American Legion Post 67 and the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 7383. And as always, I'd like to thank our very favorite veteran here, Jack Smith, and all of our other favorite veterans for their dedication and sacrifice to protect the United States and its citizens. And we want to take this opportunity to make sure that our veterans feel love and feel that they're going, that we respect them and understand the challenges that they face. So with that, let's pledge allegiance to our flag and our great country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. First order of business is to adopt the agenda. I would entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We move to recognitions, reports, and presentations. We have a guest in our audience who is working on their communications citizenship in the community badge from Troop 216. I'm going to try to pronounce his name correctly. Katatan Quinlan, will you please stand up and be recognized? Thank you for being here this evening, and good luck on the road to being an Eagle Scout. All right, our next presentation is a bittersweet thing to say, retirement recognition for Tony Desimans. And I'll invite Tony to meet me at the podium. So, I've had the honor and privilege to know Tony for many years, and to say she's been inspirational is an understatement. She's an incredible person. And we tried to put all this down into words, just some of the things that we think and know about Tony. And so, this is by far the longest proclamation I've ever done. And it doesn't even cover half of the stuff that she's done. Commending Tony Y. Desimans upon her retirement for devoted service to the town of Cary. Whereas, after more than 27 years of acclaimed public service, 25 of which were dedicated to her work with our Cary organization, Tony Desimans is retiring April 2023, following a respected career that impacted both her colleagues and the citizens of Cary in ways that were exemplary and worth special recognition. And whereas Tony graduated from high school in Fort Worth, Texas, and went on to earn a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice from Phoenix University before going on to graduate from the Federal Bureau of Investigation National Academy, as well as the North Carolina State University Administrative Officers Program. And whereas from 1989 to 1997, Tony served our country bravely and honorably in the United States Army, including Operation Desert Storm. And whereas Tony transitioned her career to work with the North Carolina Department of Corrections as a corrections officer from 1996 to 1998, before joining Cary as a patrol and SWAT officer in January of 1998 as her first position with the Cary Police Department. Whereas Tony impressively built her skills and progressed throughout the CPD during more than 2 decades of esteemed policing, serving first as a sergeant, followed by her appointment as a district lieutenant, a district and professional standards captain, an assistant chief of professional standards, and our police chief before transitioning to her current role as a director of public safety in 2021. Whereas in all phases of her notable career, Tony shined as a leader while moving through the ranks, always exemplifying in her interactions that she was deeply committed to Cary's organizational values of people first. Page 2. Whereas in her role at the helm of police chief from 2019 to 2021 and currently as director of public safety, Tony is a steadfast partner with the community, continually providing exemplary policing to ensure that Cary, North Carolina remains one of the nation's safest cities. And whereas throughout her career, Tony served Cary from her heart through holistic leadership ideologies, excuse me, she's ready with the water, but I don't need it, and with values that are key to exemplary public service, to include holding excellence, teamwork, professionalism, ethical behavior, loyalty, and trust to all Cary citizens and employees as her guiding beacons. Whereas throughout her long tenure, Tony adaptively grew along with Cary as it evolved from a thriving community of 46,000 people.
Wow.
Where she began her career, to a maturing community of more than 182,000 citizens today. Perhaps best exemplified through her collaboration in the introduction of geopolicing, which enables officers to partner with citizens and become experts on the needs, issues, and concerns of people within the district. Whereas Tony's high standards for both integrity and ethical policing made her excel in her job, it was her shining kindness toward everyone she encountered that made her a very special kind of colleague and a friend, especially among her peers as in the department director group who cherish her with the highest regard. And whereas Tony will enjoy her retirement from the vast responsibilities inherent in her business role, to enjoy her partnership with her beautiful wife Hillary and 3 beloved dogs, while continuing to serve as a volunteer and foster home for a Chihuahua rescue, while also embracing her love for the outdoors, mountain biking, and enhancing her self-taught guitar skills, now up to 5 guitars, I think, along with other freedoms and adventures that retirement brings. Page 3. Now, therefore, I, Harold Weinbrecht, Jr., Mayor of the town of Cary, on behalf of the entire Cary Town Council, do hereby extend our personal congratulations, commendations, and appreciations to Tony Y. Desmond for her faithful service and dedication to the organization and the Cary community, and extend our personal best wishes upon her retirement, wishing her much happiness and continued success in all future endeavors. Proclaim this 23rd day of March 2023.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I wrote a few things because I didn't want to leave here without acknowledging just what the last 25 years has brought to me. So, Mayor and Council, I just want to say, over the last few weeks, I've thought a lot about what words I would say that would capture the essence of my 25 years with the town of Cary. I quickly realized that trying to condense a career into a few short words could never capture all that I feel, especially now. But to try to be succinct, I've had an amazing career with the town of Cary. I've had the pleasure to work with amazing colleagues around the town, across the town, lead the finest public safety professionals, and help make a difference in the lives of those living and working in our community. My career has brought me lifelong friendships and personal fulfillment that will endure long past my retirement. For that, I will forever be grateful. The past 25 years have impacted my life both personally and professionally, and my time here will be forever cherished. But I do want to thank a few people. So first, I'd like to thank the council for your service, your leadership, and your vision. It's been my honor and pleasure to work with you. The citizens of Cary, I know, are in very good hands under your leadership. I'd like to thank our town manager, Mr. Sean, for his confidence in me and for his mentorship, his support, and the grace that he's given me over the last 6 years. You're truly a gifted thinker, leader, and friend. I'd like to thank my fellow department directors. I've never worked with a group of professionals that are so selfless about the work that they do. It is with great intention that you're serving in your roles. Keep pushing and always keep us at the top of the arc. I would like to thank Chief Solt, Chief Cooper, and Russ Overton, our Deputy Town Manager, for their friendship and support, especially over the last couple of years. I hold great respect for each of you and your willingness to stand up and lead in the most difficult of times. You each hold a special place in my heart. I'd like to thank the citizens of Cary for allowing me to serve you over the last 25 years in many capacities, most recently as police chief, then as public safety director. I want to thank our men and women serving as police officers, firefighters, communications officers, and emergency communications officers who are on the front lines every day. You are the true heroes. I'm proud to have worked with each of you in the last 25 years. You challenged me in many ways and made me want to be the best that I could be. While your job is not easy and comes with great sacrifice, I'm confident in your resolve, your commitment, and dedication to our profession. It's to you I leave the words of the late General Norman Schwarzkopf. Leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character, but if you must be without one, be without strategy. Lastly, and most importantly, I want to thank my family and friends, especially Hillary, who has made many sacrifices in her own career to support mine. It's now time for me to support you now in your career. Thank you again for an amazing and beautiful 25 years. It's truly been my honor. Thank you.
Shifting gears, we now move to public speaks out portion of our meeting. We've included instructions for speaking at public speaks out online and the printed agenda. There were 3 opportunities to participate in public speaks out through written comments, calling in, or attending here in person tonight. If you are here in person and would like to speak, I would ask that you take a seat in the rows to my right that are reserved for speakers. Public speaks out speakers have up to 3 minutes each for their comments, and speakers may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing, and that's to your advantage because you get more time to speak at a public hearing. The 3-minute time limit will be enforced, not to be rude, but to be fair to all of our speakers. There's a timer on the podium, It'll start off with a green light. When the green light turns yellow, you have 30 seconds remaining. And when the yellow light turns red, that's the moment I'll interrupt you, not trying to be rude, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers. I thank everyone in the audience for understanding that this is a business meeting. Please respect that and do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, or anything else that may distract from this business meeting. So now is the time for public speaks out, and I'll first call on the clerk to read any written comments and call on any registered speaker.
We had one written comment. They are requesting the waste schedule be adjusted to pick up recycling weekly. We cannot say as a community that we care about the environment and not offer weekly recycling pickup.
Okay.
That was our one written comment. There's no registered speakers.
Okay. If you are here and you would like to speak at this time and do not wish to speak at a public hearing, now's your time to come forward. Anyone to speak at Public Speaks Out?
Good evening. Does it matter which one?
That one's perfect.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here to speak concerning the proposed annexation and rezoning of the Conoy 22 Res 13.
Could you give us your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Cary Strickland Ward.
Thank you.
I get nervous. So.
Oh, you're fine. Go ahead.
Excuse me. The Conoy 22 Res 13 came before you guys about a month ago and will be going before the zoning board. So I wanted to again speak. Chatham County is providing much needed green opportunities for Cary to build as Cary runs out of 50-plus acre green spaces. However, as we develop closer to Jordan Lake, we're in the Jordan Lake watershed. So it's very important to consider that. Jordan Lake has been riddled with issues for many years now. Quality issues resulting in parts of the lake actually being identified as impaired on the federal government's official list of waters. Chemical treatments, algae overgrowth, taste and odor challenges, increased blue algae levels, water treatment challenges, expensive chemical treatments that are being added to the water, fish kills, the 2017 $4.1 million aeration equipment are all things that have been added to try to improve the water quality of Jordan Lake. Building in Chatham County is a desirable thing, but going with the joint land use agreement and boundaries and borders and trying to add in green spaces to fit the Cary 2030 green space plan, to not have so much asphalt areas, to leave a little bit of buffer zones. So what we're asking for as the citizens of Chatham County within the joint land use agreement area is 0.5 acre lots bordering existing Chatham County developments and more buffer zones, maybe 75 feet. As a resident of Chatham County for 20 plus years, I've seen the development of Cary coming. I've seen flooding. I've seen my driveway washed out. I've seen erosion in my yard. I've seen problems with our stream. All I'm asking is as we develop, we look at how we can develop responsibly in the watershed for Jordan Lake, because this is the watershed and the lake for 182,000 plus people within the town of Cary. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker for Public Speaks Out. Anyone for Public Speaks Out? We'll close Public Speaks Out and move to the consent agenda, which is item 4 if you're following along. For the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, I'm going to take a moment to review our consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that one vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda, we have consideration of rejecting all bids for WakeMed Soccer Park Locker Room Addition, Act 25 Land Development Ordinance Amendments, NCDQ required updates and additional process improvements. Would council members like either of these items pull for discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And that takes us to public hearings. Same rules apply for public hearings that apply for public speaks out with one change. Speakers now have 5 minutes each for their comments. Our first public hearing is item 6.1, 22 REZ 14, Carpenter Fire Station at Highcroft, PDD. Senior Housing Planner Heather Willihan will introduce the item. Council will not take action on this item tonight. It will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation, and will return to council at a future date for decision at that point. Ms. Wheelahan.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request to rezone 5 properties totaling approximately 19.5 acres on Carpenter Fire Station Road between NC 540 and NC 55 Highway from transitional residential conditional use and residential 40 R40 to Planned Development District Minor or PDD Minor. The properties are outside the corporate limits, but inside Cary's ETJ, so annexation would be required prior to development plan approval. This evening's public hearing is for the rezoning proposal only, and council would see the annexation come back at a later date. Division at Carpenter Fire Station Road and Highcroft, just across from the future Cary Neighborhood Park. Other developments in the area include Carpenter's Point, Carpenter Fire Station PDD, Apollo 55, Bexley, and Channing Park. The assemblage is currently occupied by detached dwellings, manufactured homes, and an automobile sales and service business. There are overhead power lines at the southwest corner of the subject site's frontage on Carpenter Fire Station Road, and per the LDO, utility lines are required to be installed underground except in situations where placement is prohibited or determined to be impractical. According to Duke's current plan to be implemented in conjunction with the Carpenter Fire Station Road widening project, a joint pole will be located at the southwestern corner of the site. The property's northern boundary runs along the Morris Branch. Additionally, Cary's GIS maps indicate potential streams on site. Field determination of such features is required at review. Carpenter Fire Station Road is currently a 2-lane road with varying right-of-way ranging from 60 to 85 feet, sidewalks on the south side, and no bicycle facilities. The Carpenter Fire Station Road Capital Project will widen the road to a 4-lane median divided 105-foot right-of-way section with curb and gutter, enhanced medians, and street lighting. Plans include a 10-foot trail on the south side, a 5-foot trail on the north side, and 14-foot outside bike lanes in both directions. Signals are planned at both the Cameron Pond Drive and Highcroft Drive intersections. Right-of-way acquisition is in process with construction to begin later this year. A segment of the future Highcroft Drive is on the eastern side of the assemblage. Highcroft is a collector road on Cary's planned roadway widths map and will be a 2-lane road with curb and gutter within a 60-foot right-of-way. It includes 5-foot sidewalks and 4-foot bike lanes on both sides. Russo Valley Drive, the existing local street stub to the property line of the adjacent neighborhood to the west, will be extended into the proposed development and will ultimately connect to Highcroft Drive upon the development of the adjacent parcel to the east. Carpenter Fire Station Road is identified as a future transit corridor in the Cary Community Plan. And while there are no immediate plans for fixed route transit in the vicinity of the subject property, a pad for future service has been included as a condition of the rezoning. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan does not include any proposed greenways within the subject site. However, the Morris Branch Greenway corridor is located north of the site and was built with the construction of the Channing Park development. It is anticipated this greenway from the site will ultimately occur via the proposed street side trail along the east side of Highcroft Drive. A future Cary Park currently under construction is just across from this site at the southeastern corner of Highcroft Drive and Carpenter Fire Station Road. This park is anticipated to open later this year. Another neighborhood park located on McCrimmon Parkway is about 0.8 miles northwest of the site, also under construction, also anticipated to open later this year. The site is currently zoned transitional residential conditional use and residential 40. Current conditions on the parcel zone TRCU limit development to detached dwellings at a maximum of 2.9 dwelling units per acre with a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet and include a 20-foot buffer, type B buffer along the western property line adjacent to Simbury Glen Court. The applicant is proposing to rezone to PDD minor. The Carpenter Fire Station at Highcroft PDD, which becomes a part of the zoning, commits to a maximum of 325 multifamily dwelling units, 25 townhouses, 3,000 to 5,000 square feet of commercial space. The master plan also shows 3 access points, the preservation of 3 champion trees, a minimum of 15,000 square feet of community gathering area, and additional amenities including a community pool, clubhouse with a fitness center, dog park, and bike storage. The plan also shows 2 roundabouts with enhanced pedestrian crossings. Pedestrian connectivity throughout the site also includes a 10-foot trail along the north side of Russo Valley Drive, a 7-foot trail along the south side of Russo Valley Drive and both sides of the new north-south street, and then 5-foot sidewalks within the other development pods. Along Carpenter Fire Station Road, the PDD shows a 50-foot type A buffer adjacent to the residential development and a 30-foot type B streetscape adjacent to the commercial development. The plan commits to a 50-foot type A landscape buffer and a 100-foot multifamily building setback line from the western property line south of Russo Valley Drive. North of Russo Valley Drive, the plan commits to a 30-foot type A and a 15-foot type B landscape buffer. Finally, the plan incorporates the required 100-foot riparian buffer to the north, and within that space commits to a 20-foot type A buffer from the northern property line, which would require the applicant to add supplemental plantings as necessary to meet the type A planting standard. Additional zoning conditions in the PDD include a workforce housing condition committing to reserving 15 of the multifamily units for renters at or below 80% of the area median income for 30 years. A commitment that 90% of the multifamily units include balconies or covered patios, and the provision of 10 EV charging stations. The Future Growth Framework map designates the subject site within the mixed neighborhood development category. Mixed neighborhoods call for a substantial variety of housing types, unit sizes, lot sizes, and densities. Predominant uses are single-unit detached dwellings, townhomes, and multifamily. Incidental uses include small format neighborhood commercial located on the edges of residential sites. Mixed neighborhoods are marked by well-connected road networks, well-designed site landscaping, common open space, community rec amenities, and strong unifying design elements. The plan notes it may be appropriate for infill and redevelopment opportunities in mixed neighborhoods to include higher density residential uses. Examples in this designation include Carpenter Village and Amberley, both of which integrate a wide variety of housing types. In staff's preliminary analysis, we found that policies in the Cary Community Plan Live, Work, Engage, Shape, Move, and Serve chapters may apply. In regards to the Live chapter, the proposed zoning could expand housing choices for residents, particularly within existing neighborhoods. This policy aims to enable Cary's households to age within their own communities and provide opportunities to change housing types as their needs shift. The proposal could also address Live policies by providing residential development on infill sites and supporting affordable. Providing housing helps support a growing, diversifying workforce and could therefore support work chapter policies. And through its commitment to constructing trails that connect neighborhoods to greenways and the future town park, the proposal could be addressing engage policies. The proposal could further shape policies that recognize the growing public preference for mixed-use development and walkable communities. SHAPE also supports infill development and underscores the benefit of capitalizing on public infrastructure improvements. SHAPE also intends to provide for harmonious transitions between differing types and intensities of land uses. It embraces the use of natural buffer and built environment transitions. This proposal could support this policy by providing good transition from the Cameron Pond neighborhood in the form of increased natural buffers, the 100-foot building setback, and transitioning from townhomes to multifamily development. SHAPE also aims to maintain Cary's attractive visual quality by encouraging high-quality development with exceptional site design. Proposed conditions to include balconies and patios for 90% of the units, as well as a pool clubhouse and increased community gathering area around 2 champion trees could support this policy. Regarding the MOVE chapter, Cary's land development ordinance reflects the plan's policies and requires connectivity between neighborhoods to ensure adequate emergency response, increase effective municipal service delivery, accommodate multimodal connectivity, and minimize thoroughfare widths wherever possible. The PDD commits to several connectivity elements that could further MOVE chapter policies. The applicant will construct the new east-west Rousseau Valley Drive segment and stub to the eastern property line for future connection to Highcroft Drive. The applicant has also committed to construct an interim access to Highcroft Drive and the Highcroft Drive segment along the site's frontage. This interim access will be converted to a right-in, right-out upon ultimate connection of Rousseau Valley and Highcroft. And although the applicant is not fully committing to the TAR recommendation of 1 inbound and 2 outbound lanes here, the interim improvements of 1 lane in each direction with sidewalks would provide full movement access via Highcroft Drive and accommodate the site-generated traffic. The proposal also includes traffic signal infrastructure upgrades at the Highcroft Carpenter Fire Station Road intersection. Finally, the proposal could further serve chapter policies through the provision of 10 EV charging stations and by designing the site to facilitate the preservation of 3 champion trees, and by being in compliance with Cary's regulations for perimeter buffers and streetscapes. Notice of this public hearing was mailed to property owners within 800 feet of the subject site, and this exceeds the state and Cary's LDO requirements. 3 public hearing signs were posted on the site. We held a neighborhood meeting last August and had 73 citizens in attendance. Concerns and feedback were heard regarding traffic and speeding, opposition to multifamily development in the area. There were questions regarding the potential environmental issues on the site. There was concern that there be appropriate transitions between neighborhoods, and there was opposition to the property being developed in general. Since the neighborhood meeting, I've received 3 calls and 5 emails. Opposition, those callers and emailers voiced opposition to the Rousseau Valley Road connection, opposition to more development in the area generally, concern for school availability, and also support for the development. This concludes my presentation. The applicant's representative, Jason Barron, is here to address you this evening, and following Mr. Barron's remarks and the public hearing, I'll be available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Wheelahan.
I dread doing this. Mr. Mayor, I remember within the last couple of years, you made a remark that I've been doing this for long enough that when I started, I didn't have gray hair. I also didn't have reading glasses. I know I'm going to hear about this, so I thought I'd go ahead and call it out. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group, here on behalf of the applicant, in this case, excited to be here. Joining me tonight are representatives of Martin Fine Interests. They're the proposed developer of this site. Tim Wooten and Daniel Fine have come up for this meeting. Also, Bob Zumwalt with BGE is joining me tonight. His firm has provided the planning and engineering that has gone into the development that's in front of you. As always, Ms. Wheelahan and the entire staff has done an incredible job, very thorough job in pulling together a staff report that really kind of covers the details. And so in typical fashion, I kind of want to focus on maybe the bigger picture associated with the development. As has been noted, this is a mixed-use development, horizontally integrated mixed-use development with commercial on the corner of Highcroft and Carpenter Fire, along with apartments and townhomes. One of the things I want to focus on a little bit before I get started is where the property is located, because I think ultimately it's important to look at not only the site in question and how it's designed, and I believe we have an excellent design, and I'm going to make my way. I'm sure Heather would find a faster way for me to do this, but not only an excellent design, and I'll touch on that design momentarily, but also where this site is located is important in terms of what it's going to grow up to be. So you've got Carpenter Fire Station Road as the southern boundary of the site. As you all are aware, there's a significant capital project that's currently under development or underway to widen Carpenter Fire between 55 and heading west over to Cameron Pond, and this site will have widening that occurs as part of that. The eastern boundary is partly Highcroft Drive. Eventually, Highcroft will extend through this site and up to its terminus on the north side of the creek and connecting to McCrimmon Parkway and up into the Alston area. You may not be aware, the site to our east of this property is currently under contract. There have been multiple pre-application meetings with the town to talk about possible development of that site. What does that mean? That the legs of Highcroft, which have slowly been coming into reality, I know we've all kind of been waiting for Highcroft to become a thing, are starting to pick up steam. They're starting to get some bones to them, and so I'm optimistic that with the market where it is and what's going on that site, that some applicant will come along with the right mix of uses, and ultimately we'll have a connection from Highcroft all the way over to McCrimmon. So when that happens, this property will be located at the intersection of Highcroft and Carpenter Fire. Highcroft will extend up to McCrimmon. That will be a lot of site traffic. Also, and you can't see it on the screen, but as you all are aware, this site is in close proximity to RTP. And we've seen a lot of multifamily development in and around this area, and that's because of the sites in this area and their proximity to Research Triangle Park. As you're aware, Google has an announcement for a campus they're developing that will have 3,000 jobs that haven't yet gotten here. Apple has an announcement for a campus in RTP that's very close to this site that has another 3,000 jobs that have not gotten here yet. I mean, that's 6,000 jobs within close proximity to this site. RTP still doesn't have the ability to provide residents a place to live in close proximity to where they work. So we believe that having apartments and townhomes along with neighborhood commercial in the site makes sense, just given kind of the site's proximity to employment uses nearby. As was mentioned in the presentation, as noted on this screen, there's a future park located within very close proximity to the site. Obviously going to be walkable, bikeable, multimodal options to get to the park. Lastly, the site will enjoy the access to the greenway that's located on the north side of the property ultimately. And so what does all of that mean? I believe what all of that means is that this is a site that screams for something more than single family attached homes. It screams for something more than just townhomes. And I believe the blend that my client has come up with is an appropriate amount of density in this location. It's delivered in a way that makes sense. It's context sensitive. They've been responsive to the neighbors, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We believe we're consistent with the recommendations of the Cary Community Plan. In this particular neighborhood that's designated on the Cary Community Plan, apartments are a primary use, townhomes are a primary use, and neighborhood commercial are a secondary use. So we kind of check those boxes out of the gate, what types of uses should go here. That's in addition to the fact that it's located in a place that's screaming for more density than has traditionally been located in this area. From a design standpoint, I'm really proud of the work that Bob and his team over at BGE has put into this development. I will tell you first and foremost, these champion trees, when they were identified on the site, and Bob always does a great job with this. His plans are always thoughtful about how to preserve champion trees, and I'd be remiss if I didn't applaud him in this instance for doing that. Knowing the type of density that they want to put here, the champion trees have always been a part of this plan. They recognized them out of the gate. They recognized they had to figure out how to extend Russo Valley through the site, and Bob and his team, working with Martin Fine, wanted to make those champion trees kind of the focal point, the center, the nucleus of how the residents who are going to be living here are going to congregate on the site. So I do want you to know that those aren't here by accident. And I'd also note there are no champion trees that are being removed as part of this development. This is an apartment development with townhomes and commercial, and there are no champion trees that are being removed. Again, it's kind of rare in the cases that we see come forward, and I think that's not by accident. The design has transitions that are appropriate for this site. As you can see, there are transitions with respect to use. We have the commercial located at the hard corner between Highcroft and Carpenter Fire, and we transition down to apartments, townhomes closest to the Cameron Pond neighborhood. And so we've got use transitions, we've got height transitions wired in, we've got appropriate access connecting to Russo Valley. We have a 10-foot side path that's being provided along the north side of the property that ultimately will connect out to Highcroft and provide pedestrian connections for the people who live in Cameron Pond to get over to Highcroft and up into the Alston area. Changes that have been made since this case has been filed. The buffer that was proposed associated with the case along the southwestern boundary, which is where essentially we have our only neighbors that adjoin the site. There's a small circle of neighbors that live in this area that abut the property. We've increased that from 30 feet to 50 feet. We've added a 150-foot building setback. Actually, it's not 100. I think the staff report says 100. It's a 150-foot building setback off of the property line. Cameron Pond has 30 feet of setback on their side of the property, so the minimum amount of distance between any buildings that are developed on our site for multifamily and the homes that are over there is 180 feet. Again, that we believe that's substantial, and that's a commitment that was made after we received neighborhood feedback. We received feedback and concerns associated with Russo Valley. And I will tell you, and you've heard me say this before, my client doesn't need to make the connection to Russo Valley. It's not something that they need for their design in order to work. However, the town has a priority related to interconnectivity, which in this instance makes a lot of sense. Right now, I know that the connection to Russo Valley is of great concern to the folks who live in Cameron Pond. We have worked closely with you all's transportation staff to ensure that as we develop our section of Russo Valley, we're including traffic calming that will slow people down as they make their way out of our neighborhood and potentially into Cameron Pond if they want to head west. I will tell you that our traffic study shows that in the AM peak, there are 29 vehicles that make their way from our site into Cameron Pond. That's during the AM peak hour. During the PM peak hour, there are 36 vehicles from our site that are making their way through Cameron Pond and into the development. And so what that means is roughly one vehicle every 2 minutes is going to be generated by our development through Russo Valley and out to Cameron Pond. And I want to make that point because I understand and I am sensitive to the concerns that the folks who live in Cameron Pond have, but the data shows that the traffic generation that's being proposed by this site is not significant in terms of the overall anticipated traffic that will be going through Russo Valley. And I do believe my client has done a very good job of being context sensitive and working with the town's transportation staff to ensure connectivity, but also do so in a way that's safe. Ultimately, when the connection is made from Russo Valley through our site and out to Highcroft, I would venture to guess that there's going to be far more traffic coming from Cameron Pond through our site and out to Highcroft than there will be going in the other direction. And I think that's a testament to the fact that that's how interconnectivity is supposed to work. You want to give people multiple ways to get into the same place. And so with that, I'll conclude my remarks. As is always the case, we are listening to the neighbors. We understand the neighbors. We can't not be what we are. We recognize it's an apartment community, and some folks just don't want to see apartments here. We respectfully disagree with that. However, we're committing to doing what we can in this development to provide appropriate transitions, to provide safe connections, to provide buffering that will ensure that as this property is developed, it will not have a negative impact on folks' way of life. With that, Mr. Mayor, we look forward to continuing the process and look forward to you all's support at the end of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. So now's the time for the public hearing for 22 REZ 14 Carpenter at Highcroft PDD. And I'll call on the clerk at this time to read any written comments and call on any registered speakers.
So we had 12 written comments. 11 written comments were in opposition to the development. Their reasonings included the area is far out of balance with multifamily housing compared to single-family options. Additional development will further the issues with school capacity and traffic. Concerns about current density in western Cary. Requested council to consider single-family homes for the area, raised concerns about safety and preserving the beauty of Cary, and concerns for school availability. We had one comment in support as they feel it does not negatively impact their property. And then no call-in speakers, and we had 3 registered speakers.
Okay.
Our first speaker is Aaron Franklin.
Hello, Town Council members. I'm really grateful for the chance to speak out and on behalf of my fellow residents of the Cameron Pond neighborhood. In fact, I wanted to note that the files I'm distributing here is an updated version to what I provided you ahead of the meeting, where we now have over 100 residents within that zone that was indicated on the map, indicating opposition to this rezoning application, and a full opposition, I will note. While we've been really pleased with the responsiveness of the town staff members and with the attorney representing the developers, the fact is there is no remediation to the plan that is going to account for the damage that we see happening by allowing this rezoning to occur. So a few points I want to just indicate that are highlighted a little more in my executive summary there. And by the way, page 6 of the summary would give you at the end of the table of names and addresses, actual little pins on the map, just so you can get a sense of the density of responsiveness so far, including many of my fellow residents who are here tonight. That's with 0 canvassing. I'm convinced if we canvassed, we could enter the 95% plus range on the response. So the 2 main concerns I want to bring up that have been proactively identified in the previous remarks. First is the Russo Valley Drive connection. I want to indicate that while it may be common in West Cary to live on a road to nowhere that ends abruptly, it is not common. In fact, it is unprecedented to have such a road be extended through an apartment community. This would be a first of its kind for the town of Cary, and we plead with you to not allow that exception to go forward. When it comes to the overall feeling of a community, the initiative of maintaining character in that community, I realize that the LIVE initiative of the Cary Community Plan may have as its intentional focus at first older communities in the more downtown region of Cary. But I would submit to you, as a resident of almost a decade of West Cary, Cameron Pond is a historic community for West Cary. It's one of the first neighborhoods to come to that region. And so the community, the citizens that are coming to you now, we are the established community of West Cary. We are the ones that are seeking to maintain that character. And in fact, we are the very ones that would be evicted by the transformation of a community that we all trusted would remain zoned as indicated in the planning maps of the region when we moved to this area. So Russo Valley Drive connection is a major concern. I know that buffers and extending buffers seems to increase the feel like it would answer this, but in the community plan of policy 6, nowhere does it suggest for the SHAPE initiative that there would be a road connecting a buffer. Every definition of a buffer in the community plan is one without an actual access through. It's a buffer by the intent of it being a block for traffic of any type to connect between. So regarding the community plan and LIVE initiative, policy 1 is the one that is overlooked in terms of the indications of how it's addressing the LIVE initiative through this development. And I'll just note that it indicates in that policy that it is to maintain established character of neighborhoods and to proactively prevent neighborhood decline, proactively prevent that decline, including against incoming applications for rezoning. I'd ask you something you may not think as much about, because there's a lot of focus on fulfilling policies. How do you violate policy 1? How do you violate a policy to maintain established character? Would it be that residents move in large numbers? Just since the initial public meeting that occurred about this, there have been 8 houses sold just on that one street region of Russo Valley Drive, far greater than any of the other streets you can find in the vicinity. And this is continuing to grow. And you may think, fine, no problem, others will come. But remember, We are the ones who established the feel of that community. Allowing something to go forward that effectively evicts us from the region is a compromise to that established character. In conclusion, you have an important choice to make, and I'm so grateful genuinely for the service that you all give to the community. You have a choice between maintaining the status quo of policy and procedure driven by an investor who doesn't even live in the same state that wants to develop a property out of capitalizing on an investment versus hundreds of voices, more than 90% of those who actually live there.
Your time has expired.
And okay, thank you. I
Thank you, Mr.
apologize.
Frank.
I appreciate you listening.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amy Gross.
Good evening. Thank you for your attention tonight and the opportunity to speak. I love living in Cary and I love living in Cameron Pond. And I have actually appreciated all of the developers' compromises and efforts to work with us. I am actually in one of those 3 properties that are the only ones immediately adjacent. So I'll actually start with a little orientation that's on the second page. This is the map that was shown in different formats. The tiny little green star is my property. So we are one of those 3 directly adjacent properties. Aaron mentioned 8 properties. I was immediately aware of 6 of my neighbors and friends in my community that have sold their homes and moved off of Russo Valley since the neighborhood meeting on August 3rd. By my calculations, that was 40% of the residents on Russo Valley Drive. So in my experience, we've already affected the quality and the character of the community that I moved into Cameron Pond to have. One of the things I'm primarily going to be speaking on tonight is where you see this combination red and blue circle. That is the interim access into the new development off of Carpenter Fire Station Road. It would extend Buxton Grant Drive from the other side of Cameron Pond. And one of the things that has not yet been mentioned is an option in the traffic analysis report for an eastbound leftover turn lane into the new development off of Cameron Pond. And that's going to be one of my key points. All of my comments are from the traffic analysis report, which says that the development is going to generate 2,565 external site trips. And the analysis includes 2 scenarios, one that has that eastbound leftover turn lane and one that does not. With the leftover turn lane, the report states that this would likely reduce the amount of traffic that would otherwise choose to cut through the adjacent neighborhood via Russo Valley Drive or make a U-turn or turn left at the traffic signal at Highcroft, and that it's not expected to experience any significant queuing or delays. In addition, the planned access should be able to meet the spacing requirement along Carpenter Fire Station Road. So by my calculations, there is benefit and no risk. Regardless of which scenario, with or without the leftover, traffic calming devices are recommended for Russo Valley. And again, I would like to thank the developer. The addition of the traffic circle at the Russo Valley connector was a change from the original plan, and I appreciate that. And that's really all that they can do with their side of Russo Valley. So I believe it would be the town of Cary that could consider any other traffic calming devices on the Cameron Pond side of the Russo Valley connector. Now I'll look at the maps. So we've started with this first one showing in reference where my property is and the properties that have already turned over on Russo Valley. I've also highlighted in the blue checked boxes areas where a traffic impact analysis was not available. So there was no traffic impact analysis for the new park or for the townhome community going in around Cross Point. So I'm not sure how that would affect the level of service analysis that's in that traffic analysis report. And then the next figure, figure 7, is another blow up from the traffic analysis report. I like numbers, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm good at math. So I tried to look beyond the AM, PM peak hours and just look at the percentage of trip distributions in consideration of the total number of trips that will be added. So with the leftover turn lane, it would help considerably. So by my calculations, I'll let you look at those later. That would push 642 trips throughout the entire day through Cameron Pond on Russo Valley.
Ms.
And-
Gross, I'm sorry to have to interrupt you, but your time is.
Oh, you're right. All right.
If you have additional comments from what you have provided us, please leave them with the clerk, and she'll be glad to give us
Great,
a copy.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next and last registered speaker is Gregory Schroff.
Hi, my name's Greg Schaff. Thank you for allowing me to come here and speak. I just have one page on the handout, so hopefully it'll be a little easier to read through. But I was thinking how things would change in our neighborhood with this high-density residential community being directly attached to it. And sure, there'll be more traffic. There'll be 2 extra stoplights that are in there. There'll be a road directly connecting into our neighborhood. There'll be some impact for our children and the schools and having to be redistricted probably. But what's the main difference that sets us apart? It's that road that's connecting directly from the high residential community being proposed into our neighborhood. So I went on to apartments.com and looked up all the apartments in the town of Cary, and there's over 100 that are there on the map. And I went into Google Maps and started looking at each of those apartment complexes to see how they connected into the community. And I could find no example where an apartment complex, especially a high-density one, was connected directly into an existing single-family neighborhood. It just doesn't happen. I was able to find no evidence of it. And from there, I'm losing my train of thought. It will definitely have an impact on our community from the Cary Community Plan, from the LIVE Initiative to preserve and protect the character of our neighborhood. Another adjoining neighborhood, which was mentioned earlier, Carpenter Village, that does have a mixture of single-family houses and apartments and condos, but when you buy into that community, you know what you're getting. That's part of the character of the community. Part of the character of our community and our neighborhood is the single-family residences. And I wasn't aware that there were up to 7 or 8 of our neighbors that have left the neighborhood, and that obviously is having an impact on the character. So I do appreciate the developers working with us so far and downsizing the density and putting a barrier between our neighborhood. But if we could continue to work with them to make it even smaller to minimize the impact, having 2 single-family neighborhoods would definitely continue to reinforce the character of that portion of Cary. Perhaps even the easiest thing is to do nothing with the Russo Valley extension. If it were to just be left where it's at and nothing were to happen, then we would be able to maintain the character of our community, and then you'd be able to continue and create a new community with the high-density residential moving east of our community. So, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Yep, thanks.
No additional registered speakers.
If you're in the audience and would like to speak at this public hearing, now's your opportunity, and I would invite the first speaker forward.
Council. Can you hear me? Giulio Fanu, Cameron Pond residence for the last 15 years. Before my remark, I want to take just 1 second to wish my wife of 34 years happy anniversary. I apologize.
Smart man.
Yeah.
Smart
So-
man.
This was a hot date for you.
It is. This is bucket list item off. All right. So I reviewed the document that I think it's the town put together on the impact of the development and everything, and I was like, wow, this looks terrific. Why would I be opposed to this? This ticks so many boxes. And then I realized that there's one thing missing from that report, and it's context. It feels like pretty much all of the development currently going on in West Cary are high density. They're pretty much everywhere around Cameron Pond. They're surrounded by townhomes and apartments. And it may simply be a fact of the issue that we do need more housing, and most of the undeveloped land is in West Cary. But it's changing the character of West Cary pretty substantially. There's a section in the report that states that our proportions of single, multifamily, and townhome percentages are going to go from 30%, well, basically a third, to 52% high-density housing, right? And that's a very big shift. It feels wrong, and it feels like it's going to lose West Cary's current existing character. I can't really tell if that's too much. I do not know what is too much, in fact. I do not know what's the average for Cary. Maybe that's one question from the, to the planning department. At what point do you draw the line and say, okay, yeah, we do need more housing, but maybe it shouldn't be high-density housing? There is a line somewhere that needs to be drawn that says, at some point we become, just some suburb or something, I don't know, no longer Cary. So I would, urge the planning committee to reject the zoning request. The property is perfectly zoned for what the community needs and wants, which is more single-family houses that are actually going to bring back that balance toward that 30-30-30 that currently we have, and that most of the rest of Cary enjoys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak at this public hearing?
Hello, my name's Tim Christ. I lived in Cameron Pond since 2009. I don't have anything to present other than to add on to the previous speaker's comments. Since I have lived in Cameron Pond, we have had numerous apartment complexes go up around us. We have had one, when we first moved there, Green Level of Durham Road was a 2-lane road. And now we've got an apartment complex there. We've got townhouse complex there. We've got another apartment complex there. They're putting in a huge complex right at 55 and Carpenter Fire Station Road, where there used to be that old gas station. That land was all cleared. They're putting that in. All around Panther Creek High School are apartments and townhomes. I mean, we're surrounded by them. And so I guess I would just say, aren't there other areas of West Cary to develop other than around our community that has seen all the vacant land pretty much go towards high density? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, respected City Council. My name is Joe Matthews, and I live right across from what we are talking about. I moved there after searching for a long time. I found a piece of land in 2013 and built a house there. The main reason that we were already in East Cary, near Cary Parkway. But the reason we moved there was we needed a custom home because I have two handicapped children. They are big children. They're 30 and 33 years old. They are in wheelchairs. And they wanted to be, they don't like too much noise. They get agitated. So we wanted a peaceful place where they can spend the rest of their life. I mean, they're not going anywhere. They're going to be with us as long as we live, then somebody else will take care of them. So that being the situation, we moved there, comfortable, very nice. Now what is happening late, we are giving around 0.2 acres to the city to expand Carpenter Fire Station, which I'm very glad to do it because there'll be a greenway going to the park and it's good for the community, it's good for the other section of Cameron Pond walking across, because I am in the center of that U. All behind me is Cameron Pond. I'm in the center facing Carpenter. So what I noticed that this location, people are basically, the people behind this, they are just in for a quick buck. 10 out of the 19 acres were bought in the past 2, 3, 4 years. And they're flipping it. They got this big developer from somewhere who could give them the best price. That is my guess. Because this is a company that is coming in, they were brought there by basically a few investors who bought the land, they can flip it and make millions maybe. Whereas, like my friends in Cameron Pond mentioned, why this place? Why affecting so many families and their, whatever they have? And I worked 40 plus years to be able to build that house. Now, this multifamily, especially the multifamily, the 5-story, we talked about the example of Carpenter neighborhood. But in Carpenter neighborhood, it is 2 or 3-story town apartments, not 5-story apartments, not in huge numbers like 300 units. So there's no comparison. And also the first person who talked, she talked about Amberley being, I don't think there is an apartment complex in Amberley, not the Amberley that I know. But anyway, those examples I don't think were great examples. So, that is my main point, that this is not the place for that. And building these, and also a couple of points I just laughed at it. Leaving a couple of trees at the back or building 10 charging stations, that's just PR. That's not going to help us. That's not going to help the community. That may help the people who are inside in the community there, their town community and the apartments. So what I prefer, and I'm for development, but what I was expecting that someday there will be single family homes, because that goes with the neighborhood, with Cameron Pond, with what we have, it goes with that, not this multifamily coming from somewhere. And also the worst case, maybe some townhomes, 2-story townhomes, not multifamily apartment, 300 of those. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm totally, absolutely against this project. And I think they were talking about quality of life and all that in that Zoom meeting we had. It's not going to add to the quality of life of anybody except the people behind it. So that is basically what I had to say, and thank you so much for considering my humble request. I'm only one, I'm not a community, but just one person community. I'm totally against it and vehemently oppose this idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker for this public hearing. Anyone else for this public hearing?
Hi, my name is Jillian Truesdell. I live at 503 Simbury Glen Court. I don't have anything to hand out, but if you are able to see a map of the property when they were discussing any of the properties that were going to be directly adjacent to the development, I'm one of those houses. So I'm the court right off of Russo Valley that would eventually potentially connect to the proposed rezoning and development. I wanted to just really quickly say that I understand, with all the development going on, that it's really important that people have a place to live, and that people that aren't able to find a place to live have many different opportunities if they're not able to put a down payment down on a house. That's very hard for a lot of people, and I understand that. And I think that it's a hard job to sit on the city council and understand that development needs to happen, but I think that it's really important we balance some of that development. And I moved here 1.5 years ago from California. I've seen and noticed, and it's obvious that we are in a boom, and we have a lot of residents moving to Cary because it's a great place to live. I will just say this, that the lawyer who represents the developer was alluding to the fact that there are going to be 3,000 people moving to the area from, Google, Apple potentially. I would just like to say that I think that it is a little deceptive to assume that 3,000 people moving here that are making around $250 to $300 a year are going to want to live in a multifamily unit apartment building. And when I moved here, I only looked for single-family homes because, again, I'm able to afford that. And I wouldn't have moved here if I couldn't have found one. I would just not have moved to Cary. So I think that it's really important that when we're looking at development, we're looking at not only multifamily and townhomes, but we're looking at adding single-family homes to the area because I think that we are going to run up very short. So that's just one perspective that I want to give because I am someone who has moved here recently and has been looking for a single-family home, and it was a nightmare. And as we're seeing more residents moving here and looking for single-family homes, I think we're also going to come up with an issue of not being able to provide single-family homes for people that want one because they have large kids and they don't want to be in such close quarters with teenagers, or if they have pets and they need, yards to run them in. So I think that's the first thing that I just wanted to say. The second is regarding the connection to Russo Valley. I think this is the most important concern that you should all really take a hard look at. Because it's hard on a map to understand the length of a road and the width of a road and the feel of a road and how much traffic it's going to be able to sustain. And we are 9 houses long. So this is a very, very short segmented road. It is very narrow. We only have a sidewalk on one portion of the road, or on one side of the road, excuse me. And when we have garbage cans out every single week, we cannot pass 2 cars next to each other. So adding potentially 642 trips on our road every day. And I understand they're talking AM, PM peaks. I don't think that that's how it should be looked at because we don't only leave our houses in the AM or PM, and we don't have our kids walking to school only in the AM or PM or going to a park or going to a bike trail. This is an all day, every day, how many cars are going to be on our very, very small, narrow street. And it's going to be significantly impactful if you put 642 cars going down our road every single day. So I just think it's really important to understand how short and narrow this road is. And it's very, very difficult to understand based on the map. I would urge you to come and drive on our road. I would urge you before you make this decision to please come and drive on Russo Valley and understand just how short and narrow it is. The other issue is safety. Coming from my court, crossing over the road to get to the sidewalk to get to the bus stop, there is no way to cross that road. If you have 642 cars going down the road and my son needing to get to the bus stop, there's no way for him to safely cross the street to that sidewalk. So I would just like to ask in my last 10 seconds here, if you do decide to approve this development, can you please potentially make some sort of amendment that you would allow, because it is the city, not the developer. The developer doesn't care.
Please wrap it up. You're way over time.
Okay, sorry. would you please make some sort of amendment that the road does not have to connect, because that is the city's responsibility and
Okay.
not the developers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I apologize.
Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Steve Abramowitz. I live in Cameron Pond on the south side of Carpenter Fire Station Road on Buxton Grant Drive. My wife and I moved down from Pennsylvania in 2015. I took a job in Greenville, North Carolina. And when I first took the job, I said, Maryland, I said, I'm starting to look at places in Greenville, you know, to live. Here's a few pictures. And right away, she stopped me and she said, we're living in Cary, North Carolina. And she did plenty of research. And, you know, she talked me into it. And I have a 109-mile commute each way to Greenville. But now with COVID, I don't have to go in every day. But when we look for houses, we look for, you know, development, single family, similar to what we had in Pennsylvania. We looked at Highcroft, we looked at a few other developments, and we found a house in Cameron Pond. I can tell you, if the multifamily use development was across the street, we would never have bought the house in Cameron Pond. You know, so, and also, I think that says, does that road going into the new development say Buxton Grant Drive? Is it an extension of Buxton Grant Drive? Yes, so we're very proud to live on Buxton Grant Drive. You know, and if in the future, if there's apartments, you know, that are on Buxton Grant Drive, to me, it just, it deteriorates the value, you know, of living on that street. So there's just a lot of negatives that that come with living across from a multi-family, you know, the traffic congestion, the throughput through Russo Valley. To me, we looked at houses on Russo Valley. You know, I'd probably be up there right now complaining about that throughput. I think that's something that should not happen. I think the lawyer said there's going to be more cars coming from Russo going through this multi-use development. I think that's completely incorrect. It's going to be the other way around. So I would strongly consider definitely not allowing that throughput, not allowing any road to be called Buxton Grant Drive, you know, in the new development, and basically trying to preserve this lot, these parcels, as single-family homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anyone else for this public hearing?
Hello, my name is Patrick Truesdell. I'm at 503 Simbury Glen Court in Cameron Pond. My message here is actually very simple, very short. The representative for the developers stated clearly it's not important for Russo Valley to connect to our neighborhood. Our neighborhood doesn't want Russo Valley to connect, with traffic being the #1 reason. That is it. That very narrow road, I don't know if that very narrow road there, it is very narrow. It's 2 cars can barely go by without clipping each other's mirrors. The answer is just, it's really simple. Just don't connect that road. So, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else for this public hearing? Last call. I'll close the public hearing. Want to thank all those who spoke at the public hearing and invite you to speak anytime you would like. You could come to any council meeting and speak. You could text us. Well, not text us. You could call us. You could email us. You can do any way you would like to get in touch with us, and it's important for us to hear from you. What's going to happen next in this process, it'll go to the Planning and Zoning Board, and their job is to see how this proposal fits in with the Cary Community Plan. A little bit about the Cary Community Plan. It was created over 3 years by Cary citizens, not the council. And the council voted on the details of the plan in the very end. But it was a group of Cary citizens, 30 of them, that narrowed it down to the Cary Community Plan for us to vote on it, and we approved it. So the Planning and Zoning Board's job, and their appointed citizens is to say, this does or does not fit with the plan, and they're going to give us a recommendation. And all this process probably takes about 4 months, if not longer. So there's plenty of time to work with the developer. I think Mr. Schaff was the one talking about working with the developer. Mr. Barron has represented many clients over the years. I know he'll work with you and talk with you. It's to everyone's advantage to continue to communicate. If you have questions about how we're dealing with it, Ms. Wheelahan will be glad to contact you and give you information. And Mr. Barron will work with you. He'll talk with you. He won't ignore you. So that's to everyone's advantage. So a few things I heard that I would like to address, and I'm going to open it up to my colleagues. Why not single family? Well, that goes back to the Cary Community Plan and how it's interpreted. We cannot force anything outside what is in the plan. We can't force anything. It's the applicant brings a proposal forward. We evaluate the proposal, whether it fits or not in our community and if it's best for our citizens. Someone made a comment about population. Mr. Barron spoke of population. I've been giving talks throughout this year, starting at the beginning of this year, about population. We expect 19% job growth in the next 5 to 10 years, and the population of this region to double in 20 to 30 years. So that's significant. And if you don't think it's happening, I meet with the Wake County mayors once a month, and they're Cary 20 years ago. I promise you, they're feeling it. So do we get single-family proposals? Not much, if ever, anymore. And the ones we do, interestingly enough, people are against those too. 90% or over 90% of what comes to staff that never reaches us are multifamily proposals. And we never see those. They're scared away by all the things that we need to make it acceptable to Cary to even consider. And so what does come to us is some of the best stuff. And that's why you see the things that some people were mocking, the champion trees. We care about trees. The buffers, we care about buffers. We care about e-charging stations. We care about community gathering space. All those things Mr. Barron talks about is because he's been around and he knows that's what we care about, those types of things. And that's why he said what he said. Not defending his proposal or anything. I'm just trying to explain what I heard. The road situation, that's something that is required with our connectivity ordinance, as far as I understand. I'm not sure how much flexibility Ms. Wheelahan's coming forward. Maybe she can help me with that.
I can speak to that. I mean,
Sure.
Ultimately, the connection is determined at the time of development plan, but the connectivity ordinance would typically require these neighborhoods to be connected if that connection and that stub was available in the adjacent neighborhood. There is a stub all the way to the property line of the Cameron Pond neighborhood currently.
Just had this conversation. Ms. Whelan, is it signed?
It is signed. There is a signed future road connection there, yes.
I'll open it up, my colleagues. I think I got it down. Oh, one more thing I saw. So currently the zoning is transitional, conditional,
Between
and R40?
Yes, that's correct.
So I wanted to address the R40. So R40 means 1 acre lots. And Cary doesn't basically have anything in our plans for 1 acre lots anymore. That's a holding zoning. To be annexed in the town, you have to be given a zoning. And they give you an R40 zoning because they know we don't do 1 acre lots. And so if you want to develop, you have to come in for a rezoning and we get to make a decision. That's why the R40 lots are there, in my opinion. There's probably a technical reason, but that's why they're there. And so R40 is really not what that's going to develop out, and it certainly doesn't fit the Cary Community Plan, but that's why it's there. So the developer, or the applicant, is forced to come in because he's got R40 on his property, and he's got transitional use, which he probably could develop in. But basically, R40 lots, he'd have to have 1 acre lots per house, and that's not what an applicant's going to do. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Do you want to let Ryan, go first.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Oh, thank you. I do have a.
Oh, you're the district
Do you
rep.
live I
near there?
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Been by there a couple times now. So I do have a few questions. So my first question is on, I believe it's called private vehicular circulation. That's going to be a private road.
Yep.
You refer to that as an interim connection. Can you maybe talk about the future of what happens to that once there is ultimately connectivity to Highcroft Drive?
Right in, right out.
Yeah, so that connection, vehicular connection, would remain. The PDD calls for parking to be permitted along that, so it could serve as convenience parking for the neighborhood commercial at that corner. And then the entrance, as it connects with Highcroft, would be converted to a right-in, right-out upon ultimate connection of Russo Valley and Highcroft.
Is there any justification from the applicant as to why we're going to make that a private drive? So I see private drive, and that's a major red flag for me. And I think talking generally, I don't think we should be approving rezonings with private drives. Like, I just feel very strongly anywhere in town. Why do we have a private drive there? I'm just wondering if there's a reason why we're the applicant, if the applicant provides any justification around that.
But isn't can you bring up the map? Is the private drive just on the commercial area? Because most commercial areas have private drives and private parking lots. Or is it?
It looks like it supports both, but I hear what you're
That's why
saying.
I'm trying to understand.
So the private vehicular connection would be this kind of lighter periwinkle here. And that would be serving, as you've noted, as an interim condition. So knowing that eventually the public road would take over as that access, the primary access that would serve to Highcroft.
But we're still likely to see vehicles coming out of that multifamily
He's
onto
on
the private
slide
drive.
16.
Yeah, if you can go to slide 16, it might be better to. Yeah, so the portion that connects to Russo Valley Drive would potentially have traffic coming from that multifamily development.
Yes.
Okay. Also, on the topic of transportation, you mentioned that there's a signal going in at Carpenter Fire Station Road in Highcroft, that intersection. Is that something that is proposed by this rezoning request, or is that something that the town has already planned for?
So both of those signals are a part, let me go back to that slide as well. Both of these signals kind of highlighted here in orange are a part of the Carpenter Fire Station road widening capital project that is currently in the planning process underway. The applicant is committing to the signal upgrades that would accommodate that fourth leg. So the signal would be there here at Highcroft and Carpenter Fire Station with the capital project, but the applicant is upgrading it to accommodate that extra traffic.
Okay, got you. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
And then, actually, if you can go back to that slide 16. Those traffic calming measures, so once they're ultimately built, who's responsible for maintaining them? I'm assuming we're going to have some type of landscaping on them?
Yes, there would. The ultimate width and design of those, we would be requiring the applicant to work with us during development plan review, potentially even defining those before that. But yes, there would likely be, we would be looking for some landscaping on those, and those would be town maintained because those would be public roads.
And let's say that this development goes in and there's additional traffic calming that would be required further down. And I think some of the public hearing speakers did allude to this. The possible need for additional traffic calming off-site. Who would ultimately be responsible for those, and who would have to pay for them?
So within the past year, we've started a new traffic calming program at the town of Cary that invites citizens to call out these segments that are in need of study, and then our traffic engineer spend some time looking at the trip generation on that exact segment, and then working with the residents to determine which traffic calming measures might be appropriate. So we would do that. It could be parallel to this rezoning or the development, but that is an initiative that we have available for any road in Cary at any time.
And then ultimately that would be something that comes before us as a council, and we would act on it and then fund it, or how?
So the traffic calming initiative that we currently have doesn't, for each individual, if there's an initiative that's approved by the committee, the transportation department that reviews these, those don't come individually before council, but they're approved in accordance with the policies that are in place for that traffic calming program, which council has approved.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's all for me right now.
Okay, all right. I'll make some different comments. Let's see where to start. There's so much. When I look at an application like this, I think a couple things. First of all, I think, how would I feel if I lived in the neighborhood adjacent or one of the neighborhoods adjacent? What would I think about this? And the second thing I think of is, after this development gets done, how will I feel driving past it knowing I had a responsibility over what went into development in perpetuity? Because the things that we decide on, you put in a development like this is forever. So, I think about that's a big responsibility. So I look at this, and Mr. Wheeler-Handed, would you mind going to slide 18 for me? I look at this whole area here in pink that's designated as mixed neighborhood, and what I think has happened is that the applicant has taken it upon himself or themselves to accomplish a mix of uses on this 19.5 acres versus looking at it in full context to say that this mix occurs over a pretty wide geographic area here. I mean, this is, I would guess that it's probably 60 acres between Cameron Pond, like where Cameron Pond starts or ends, all the way over to the road that you see there to the east. So I think probably what I'd say is that it'll be hard for me to feel convinced that this mix of uses is the appropriate mix of uses for this particular site. While I see that townhomes are valuable, I think that the apartments are probably too intense to be right up against a single family. And I do agree. I mean, when I read the emails this morning or this afternoon and I was looking at what people had to say, and they made the point about how many vehicular drives connect a residential single-family home community to an apartment complex, I was challenged by that. And I was like, because sometimes people say things like that and you're like, okay, yeah, I could figure out a couple that defy what they just said. And I actually couldn't think of any except for the one in Carpenter Village. So I think that there is some truth to that. And the reason why is because we don't look at apartments as being a transition from single family. We typically step down smaller unit lots, single family or townhomes over to apartments and then to commercial. So while I think that whole blend could occur on this maybe total 60 acres, I don't know that it's appropriate to do it all on this 19.5 acres. The other thing I thought about, Mayor, had to do with what you had to say about the R40 holding pattern. And sitting in this chair, we've heard a lot of people come to us and say, oh, but I thought this was always going to stay farms or low density. And that's not what these residents are saying at all. What they're saying is there's a zoning for a portion of this land that is directly adjacent to the existing homes that has been designated for transitional residential conditional use. And if I bought a home and I looked at a plan, and in this case, it was my own neighborhood's plan, the Cameron Pond plan, right? Designated that land, I would feel fairly confident that that's what I was going to get. I mean, that's a higher density single family mix than what these homes are. And it's not R40. I mean, it's definitely something that was planned. So, with that, I would feel like, hey, I just got the bait and switch. I thought I was going to move into something that's TRCU, and now they're saying it's something different. So for those reasons, I would have a very hard time being convinced that this is the appropriate use. Now, with that being said, I do want to make a couple statements. One, there was a question about will the street coming into it be called Buxton Grant? And that our staff would have to weigh in on, but I'd be surprised if it was, because there's a median, right, that will be on the road.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so you can put that fear aside. That's probably not going to happen. Russo Valley Drive is another situation, and I hate to be the person who bears bad news, but that road's going to go through. I mean, we expect it all along. We have sat here and had hundreds, if not thousands of people come to us at different times and say, please don't connect the stub. But the stub is there, and the reason why is because when some development goes there, and it turns out to be a nice development, and you like it, and your child wants to go play with her friend down the street in the next neighborhood over, you don't want her to have to go out onto Carpenter Fire Station Road in the back in the neighborhood. You want her to go on the neighborhood street. And I've been down in a beach community, I won't mention the name of it, but you have to go into each one, and it's isolated, and you can't go between them, and it gets kind of frustrating. So I think Russo Valley Drive is going to go through. Now, one of the speakers said, hey, if you don't connect it, maybe we don't care as much about, and I'm paraphrasing totally, of course, maybe we don't care as much of what goes in here if you don't connect Russo Valley. But the whole point is that you're supposed to feel really good about the community such that you want Russo Valley to be connected. You want that. That adjacent community is going to be an asset to your community, and it's going to feel so good, and you're going to be happy that that connection goes through. So I'm hope that whatever ends up getting built there is one such that you're glad that Russo Valley Drive continues, and you're glad to see a, connectivity. Last few statements. I'm surprised we don't have access off-road to go over to that greenway that is between Channing Park and Cameron Pond. I would hope that our staff would take a look at that and see if there's a possibility to somehow get over there to that greenway. Just because if I had kids in this neighborhood, I really don't want them having to go all the way out to Highcroft Drive to get on that greenway. I'd really like them to be able to cut through. And then last few things, if this whole council decides to move forward, and I'm in the minority, and they decide to move forward with the proposal before us, I will say I love the roundabouts. I think that's a great addition. Thank you for doing 15,000 square feet, because a lot of communities don't. I'm pleased with the workforce housing, the porches, the EV, the dog park. I like those things. I just don't think it's the right use for this property.
Other comments?
I have a couple. I won't cover any of the ones that, questions that they already asked. I also, well, I'm saying that and then I'm just going to weigh in on it. I also agree that TRCU, if I had bought next to TRCU, and that zoning didn't happen that long ago, right? 2014 or something, 2015, I would have felt and been compelled to, build my house here, and I know what's going to be next to me because this council had already weighed in on that one. So that does bother me. I do believe that it's missing that transition, right? If I had seen a transition from the single-family homes to townhomes, and then maybe next to that, the multifamily, I would have liked that. I do have a couple of questions. One is an add-on to Councilmember Robinson's, what are the bike and pedestrians' access to the park? Since we're going to be widening Carpenter Fire Station, it's not really clear that that's going to have a safe egress into the park. And I know as we, maybe staff can look at it, as Carpenter Fire Station is being widened right there, put in, an underground access, since we're already planning on doing that. We just saw a capital project. That would be the perfect time because everybody's going to want to go to that park. So that was one. I also saw a bus icon on the transportation plan. Does that mean there will be a bus shelter there?
It's slated to be a bus pad, so some kind of, not shelter necessarily. The applicant's not committed to that, but we would look at that with our transit team at the time when the service would come. But they're leaving space on their site plan for that to happen if we make that determination in the future.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to think about having shelters near multifamily for future improvements. I'm thrilled that workforce housing is automatically, coming to us from the developer, and I really do I'm appreciative of the work done by the applicant and their representatives. I love the fact that it's for 30 years because we always ask for that. What I would love, though, is to see something commensurate with what we've already had, which is there's only 15 multifamily offered here. The last couple have been 10%, so that would mean there'd be 35. So I would have liked to see what we've been seeing from developers already up to this date. And I would like to see, the last one we had was 60 to 80% AMI instead of just 80% AMI, so that a school teacher, a firefighter, and our essential workers can live there. And I am grateful for the 10 EV charging stations as well. There is a question I had when I saw some detail on the conditions. There was something about that the developer could choose where to put those affordable units. I couldn't find it again. Can you elaborate on that condition?
Yeah, the languaging of the workforce housing condition that the applicant has offered does stipulate that they would determine where within that multifamily development those units would be placed, just that they're offered anywhere. So we could look at language, other language in conjunction with our town attorney to see what we could accept otherwise. But yes, that's the way the language reads now.
I would really be interested in us, if we move forward, and we're going to get more and more of these where we get more multifamily and they offer workforce housing. I don't think we should relegate the affordable units like to the back or to the parking lot, or, right? I think that they should be integrated and not segregated, right? Integrated into the body of the work, right? The body of the actual multifamily, rather than relegating all affordable housing people all to this building that we can make maybe cheaper or less quality. I'm not saying the developer would do that, but it's to set some guidelines for the future. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to agree with what Ms. Bush just said. Very much agree with that. I think that's a slippery slope. And I think there's so much to admire in voluntarily bringing these affordable units to us as a voluntary, condition. But we need to make really sure that we're on the right side of housing law and, what is just, kind of best humanity-wide practices here. So I just wanted to agree with what she said there. And, maybe about I'll just leave it at that. But I have mostly just a couple of questions, if you could answer them for me. The townhomes, are they for rent or for sale?
We, as a part of the use, don't stipulate if they're going to be owner-occupied or rented out.
Okay. Also, the lot sizes, I'm curious as to how large the lots are in the Cameron Pond neighborhood, just to get a better idea of the scale. And I do plan to drive it. I do plan to go take a look myself. But just to kind of frame it in my mind right now for this discussion, some scale would be helpful.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have that number, but I will get that to you to give you a sense of what the range of lots are in the Cameron Pond neighborhood.
That would be excellent. And I'm going, sort of by what I'm looking at in the drawings and such. And, I don't want to make any assumptions about the size, since there's, I'm not necessarily gifted at scale when looking at a PowerPoint slide. And I think the rest of my questions were answered, with one exception. I'd also like to get a better idea of how comparable the width would be in these streets in this new development vis-a-vis, Russo Drive. And I've seen places where there's kind of a discrepancy between, especially if they're going to be connected. There's a significant discrepancy between the width and kind of what is a reasonable volume for those streets. I would like to see us, maybe consider some remediation for that, because I understand that, from a traffic perspective, heck, I know I'm not supposed to, but I always used to bring my garbage can right into the street, right? Because my front yard's a hill and I didn't want it to topple over. But realistically, even on my street here downtown, which is not that narrow, if the neighbors across the street did it too, 2 cars most certainly could not pass on my road. And I'm just wondering, how that will compare to what the kind of width will be in this newer development. My assumption is these are going to be wider streets and could cause some problematic traffic flow, but I don't want to assume.
So as a part of the PDD, the applicant is proposing alternate street designs, which is something that the PDD does allow the applicant to come to, with the intent that those street designs be kind of above and beyond Cary's standard. And so that is detail that we would like to see as staff from the applicant, the potential custom cross-section that they would be proposing on Russo Valley. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And that's all I have. Appreciate it.
Other thoughts, questions?
If nobody has any, I'd like to say one more thing. This Russo Drive Russo Valley Drive, reminds me of the road that went through the Somerset neighborhood. Lori, I'm sure you're familiar with that one. And when that stub opened up into the adjacent neighborhood, the developer basically continued the stub for a short distance and then put another road in. And that cut down on cut-through traffic because it wasn't one long straight drive.
Right.
So that's something that maybe should be considered as well for this community, regardless of the density that ends up going in here, that maybe that would help the cause. Because I do think that once you get a long straight road, it invites people to kind of fly down a road. So, just something, something to consider.
Yeah, I don't construe silence as not listening. The point is, the points have been made. I'm just not going to keep repeating them.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one more, Mayor, if I could, just one more thing to kind of say high level. So one of the things I think that's important to keep in mind, this is more for the residents and those in attendance, this is a PDD rezoning. So for those of you that don't know, PDD is designed to allow greater flexibility to the developer under the assumption that they're going to be providing a better design than what we would under a standard language. So technically there's no design standards around PDD zonings. It's kind of a make the rules up as you go kind of thing, knowing that that flexibility really should give us a superior product than what a traditional zoning would do. So one of the things I just want to call out is, and I'm really interested in what our P&Z board brings back, but I just really don't see that in this case. I would expect to see a preliminary development plan that really jumps out to me and looks like something maybe innovative, something that really fits, but I just feel like I'm kind of disappointed that we took this PDD and just really didn't get, a good design, which is what I really think that zoning is for, so.
I would just echo the mayor's comments to everybody in attendance, the neighborhood, surrounding property owners and such, to stay engaged, stay involved, continue to have dialogue and discussion with the applicant. Oftentimes what we see come before us initially at a public hearing is not what we're seeing or considering towards the end of that process. Things do change. The system is geared to allow for projects to change as it moves through the process. Things can tend to stay on a, come back to us in a few months. We've seen projects come back to us in a few years as things get cooked. Sometimes it's a microwave real fast project, and sometimes that thing's got to sit in the crock pot for a while. Just continue to stay engaged. Really want to call a shout out to Mr. Anniversary Man. Man, you better take her out and buy her a nice dinner when you all leave here. And then I also appreciate the thoughtful comments from, I'm sorry, I didn't write down names, but the lady from California. I really appreciated that. So, to Mrs. Bush's comments, I would just, if multifamily doesn't get approved, you get 0 workforce housing units. I agree with your comments that maybe there's a better transition that can occur to work towards that as you get away from Cameron Pond. Wholeheartedly agree with Ms. Robinson. That road is going to connect. It's connectivity. The town has a connectivity ordinance for a reason, primarily public safety. And a lot of us are very familiar with Cameron Pond. They had this little buffer annihilation problem back in the day. Yeah, been there a few times. Good place.
I got deposed for 16 hours on that. So, yeah.
I'm so glad.
Happy memories.
Yeah. So anyways.
Any other comments? This will go to our planning and zoning board next, so they'll probably see that in a month or two, is my guess. And then what happens after that will come to us unless there are changes. Who knows? But I can't see it coming any sooner than 3-4 months. So plenty of time to contact everyone, Ms. Wheelahan, Mr. Barron, the council, anybody you would like to contact, any questions, any concerns, we're glad to hear them. The good thing about this council is we've been through a lot, so we know that citizen input is very important, and we listen to it. So feel free to say what you need to say and let us know how you're feeling. And if negotiations aren't going well, let us know that. If they are, let us know that because it's important as we move through the process. So thanks again for being here, and don't let this be your last time at Town Hall. Thank you, Ms. Wheelahan.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Our next item, next public hearing, is 22A22, which is 4224 and 4300 Green Level West Road. And Assistant Planning Director Katie Dry will introduce the hearing. Council will not take action on this item, but it will return to us at a future meeting. Ms. Dry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The town of Cary, owner of a 3.02 acre parcel located at 4224 Green Level West Road, and the property owner of an adjoining .81 acre parcel located at 4300 Green Level West Road, have petitioned for annexation. The town-owned property was acquired to facilitate the future construction of Yates Store Road, and the adjoining private property will fill in a gap in Cary's corporate limits and may be connected to Cary utilities. The total annexation area is 3.83 acres. This area is contiguous to Cary's limits, but is located outside of the town's corporate limits and ETJ, and it has a current zoning of Wake County Residential 40 watershed. As part of the annexation into the town, a Cary zoning designation must also be applied to the property. So there is an associated rezoning case, 22 REZ 26, to apply initial Town of Cary zoning of Residential 20 conditional use and Watershed Protection Overlay District, as well as the Conservation Residential Overlay District. Following tonight's public hearing, Council may defer action on this request to a future meeting. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dry. Now it's time for a public hearing for 22A22, and I'll call on the clerk for any written comments and call on any registered speakers.
No written comments and no registered speakers.
If you're here in the audience and would like to speak at this public hearing, now's your time. I would invite you forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, close. I'll close the public hearing, open up to council members for questions or comments. Seeing none, it will return to us at a future date. Thank you, Ms. Dry.
Thank you.
We now move to discussion items. Our one and only discussion item is Fire Station 4 Renovations Bid Award. Project Manager Matt Weatherall and Assistant Fire Chief David Rains will present this item, and council will take action or may take action. Mr. Weatherall. Weatherell.
Correct. Yep,
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Welcome. It's the first time you presented? And I butchered your name?
Virtually during our pandemic.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. But good to be in real life. Good evening, Council. Chief Rains and I are excited to present the staff report for Council's consideration of awarding the contract for the renovation of Fire Station 4. Rookie mistake, sorry. Before we discuss the renovation project and how Cary will maintain services during the renovation, I'd like to provide some background information on how this project came to be. The station serves District 4, the district shown in red on this map. It is located at Old Apex Road near West Chatham Street. Fire Station 4 opened in 1987 and is Cary's second oldest station currently in service. In 2020 and 2021, assessments of all of our staff facilities were completed by Dewberry Engineers. This assessment identified Fire Station 4 as the lowest rated public safety facility and projected significant investment would be needed to maintain the station. So as you can see from these pictures, Fire Station 4 finishes are uninspiring and need replacement. And many of the building systems at the station are at or nearing the end of their usable life. So rather than completing smaller one-off projects to address the various issues over a longer period of time, staff determined the best and most economical solution to extend the building's usable life is to renovate the interior spaces and exterior facade while preserving the existing structural and roof systems. Staff worked with Davis Kane Architects to develop the designs and bid package for Fire Station 4 renovation. The complete renovation of Fire Station 4 will extend the building's usable life and mitigate major maintenance and repair items for approximately 20 years. The station will also be brought up to current ADA and building code. Lighting will be converted to energy-efficient LED lighting, and a fire sprinkler system, bifold bay doors, and workout room will be added. The renovation project is scheduled to begin later this spring and last 12 months. Before I discuss the bid results and next steps, Assistant Fire Chief David Rains will discuss how Cary will maintain services throughout the renovation process.
Good evening, Council. Fire Station 4 serves the area in the red on the map. Fire Station 4 is centrally located in the district shown by the red circle on the map. This central location allows Cary's fire staff to meet our emergency response time level goals. Staff evaluated the response times from this current location and determined that the station was in its best location for fire service delivery within the district. Therefore, the station did not need to be relocated. Operating out of this location during the renovation is going to be the best option to maintain service delivery, as well as the best financial decision, as purchasing or renting another site for temporary operations would be more costly. Staff coordinated the lease of temporary facilities, and we'll have them installed on the front lawn and on the driveway of Fire Station 4. This will allow fire staff to operate out of the station of the site throughout the renovation process. I'll turn it back over to Matt to discuss the bid process.
Thanks, Chief. Pivoting back to the project's bidding process, the project was put out to bid in February 2023. 4 bids were received at the amounts noted in this table, and Scotia Construction was determined to be the lowest responsible bidder with a bid of $2,448,000. Looking at the project's current budget, there's a little over $2,548,000. Staff is requesting that council appropriate $319,608 of general capital reserve interest income to the fire renovation project. This additional funding will provide a total of $2,868,000 for the project. This new total allows for $420,000 for construction contingency, funding for the temporary facilities, and furnishings for the renovated station. Staff recommends that council appropriate the $319,608 from general capital reserve interest earned fund for the project completion, and award the bid for the renovation of Fire Station 4 to Scotia Construction for $2,448,000. This concludes our presentation. Chief Rains and I will take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Weatherill. So we're using interest income for the 319. Where does the 2.4 come from?
That's from the existing budget.
From the capital budget for
From
this
capital
fiscal
budget,
year?
correct.
Got it. Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I've got to know how Fire Station number 4 is the second oldest fire station in Cary.
Because we rebuilt number 2.
Yep.
Fire Station 3 is from
I can speak to that. So
But then we redid 2, so now 4 is older than 2.
Oh, okay, thank you. I was distracted, thank you.
So Fire Station number 4, located on Maynard, right there at Carytown Boulevard. In 2015, we identified response time issues out in the Crossroads area in downtown, so we relocated Fire Station 2 to 608 East Chatham Street. And then 21, I think we opened up the new fire station at 1427 Walnut Street, Station
At
number
Walnut,
9.
okay. Yeah, I live down there, so I'm familiar with those two, but I just could not.
So
wrap my
that
brain.
makes Fire Station number 3 on Kildare Farm Road the oldest fire station, and Fire Station number 4 the second oldest.
Okay, got it.
I'm just curious, the old fire station number 2 property, are we selling that, keeping that? What are we doing with that?
Not thinking about it right now.
Oh, okay. Never mind, I didn't ask that question.
That's the best
We have lots
non-answer.
of, yeah, we'd have lots of ideas for that.
Okay, never mind.
Well, they don't seem that old to me, it's all I can tell you.
Other questions, comments, or motion?
Make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
guys.
Thank you so much.
That was short and sweet. We have no closed session. Our business has concluded for the evening. I declare this meeting adjourned.